king and queen of Sam Crow. Hi, Ryan with
hello.
TVweb. So I could do this interview for like 2 hours, so I'll warn you ahead of time. It's funny, my wife and I actually just started watching Deadwood, and so now we're like, oh, it's from Sons of Anarchy. Oh, she's from Sons of Anarchy. And I realize for everyone else it's the reverse experience, but yeah, we started backwards. So you were very vocal with some of the critics who complained during, I would say, like the middle of the last season. I thought the last season was a really brave choice to not just do the same thing and not just say, here's the new villain this season, but to give us a lot of the origin stuff. I'm a comic nerd, so I like all of that. What are you going to do to piss off all those critics this season?
You know, it's never my intent to do that. You know, I think it ultimately comes down to taste, and those stories last season were stories that I really wanted to tell, and that I love telling, and I too, like you, I love the mythology shit, you know, and I do think for some people who had locked into a pattern of what the show was in the first couple seasons, struggled with that a little bit, but I think as the next, you know, if we're lucky enough to continue to do this, I think the key elements that we explored in season 3 will come to play, and people will realize that, you know, it wasn't arbitrary mythology for the sake of arbitrary mythology, you know, so.
Plus, I don't think there's anything, you know, as much as you sort of listen to critics, I don't think it's about playing to that, you know, or trying to guess who'll like what and what. I mean, I just watch his process. I don't think he's as concerned.
Here's the deal: if our viewership dropped off,
Yeah,
I'd be
then-
more concerned. But there wasn't a tick, so you know.
It's like a band. People stop buying the records.
Yeah.
That's when you notice.
Yeah.
Who cares what the magazine says? Now, I felt like the end of this season really brought us back to kind of that Hamlet vibe from the very beginning of the show, where it sort of reminds you, like, just as you're really starting to love Clay and Gemma, you're like, wait, they're kind of the villains, right?
Well, they definitely have that quality. It's a multidimensional family. You know, it's just a matter of perspective, really. I mean, you know, where your loyalty lies is how it kind of plays out with them, and I guess good guy, bad guy, who knows?
Now, we've seen, obviously, Rollins, Stephen King, I read somewhere David Hasselhoff this season. Can you tell me some about, you know, sort of the challenges creatively, because obviously those are all people who are really cool on various levels. How do you avoid sort of the stunt casting thing and make it sort of, because I felt like so far you've done a good job of making them feel like part of the universe. Hasselhoff, then it's kind of like, how's he going to do that?
Well, you know, for me, casting of Stephen King, there was a certain wink and irony involved in that, in terms of the role he was playing, and I really liked doing that because there is a dark humor and an absurdist quality to our show that I think breaks the tension of the world. And that's really the casting of Hasselhoff. The character that he plays is sort of a wink and a smile at previous things that he's done. So to me, that's sort of, you know, was the idea behind that, and I think folks will get it. You know, the rest of our casting, our main casting this season are two, you know, with the exception of Danny Trejo, who really doesn't have one of the, you know, who has a role but not one of the bigger roles. You know, our two main roles are virtually, you know,
Kind of unknown, really.
guys. I mean,
Worked
have
a lot.
worked a lot, great actors,
Great actors.
but not by no means names, you know, in terms of that would bring a level of new viewership to the show. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure, you know, critically, people are going to dig what they're doing.
They got the job because they were right for the job.
You know.
Well, I wish we had more time.
Sorry,
Thanks.
bye.
Enjoy the panel.